Mickey Hart here, you're listening to the GA Hour Football Show.
The GA Hour with Colin Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other, and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and they're both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
Where do you start with this one, lads? We've a draw in an All-Ireland final again, and for me this was a classic, and I won't hear anybody saying this wasn't a classic. I mean, the tension was incredible. I had a knot in my stomach watching it. I can't even imagine what Dublin and Kerry fans were feeling. I can't imagine what Kerry and Dublin fans that had money on it were feeling. I was just, it was an absolutely brilliant game. Both teams went at it. The big question for me is did Kerry leave it behind them? I think they did. But then you look at Dublin's complete domination of the last 11 minutes and all the wides. Connolly, Costello with the Hawkeye, Howard with a wide. Pretty sure Small had a wide in there as well. And then Dean Rock's wide at the very end. So then you're looking like Dublin finished that game with a man down much stronger. So it's hard to know. If you look at 66 minute, 1 point up against Dublin, a man up. In that context, Kerry left it behind it. But instead of Dublin cramping for the 5 in a row, I predicted it. Didn't predict it. I said it could happen. You have a chance of stopping the 5 in a row. You're a point up. That's squeaky bum time now. Dublin have been there before in an All-Ireland final. Kerry hadn't.
Yeah, well, look, I suppose, take it for what it is. A drawn match, a sort of an epic struggle where both teams had periods of dominance. You know, supporters from both sides got great value, even though they're expensive tickets. But, you know, it was a great spectacle, a phenomenal contest. The result in doubt right to the last kick of the game. Yeah. I mean, that is what... You cannot get a better All-Ireland final than that. You know, back to who's going to feel sorer this morning in terms of not getting the victory, it's very hard to tell. I mean, like, Kerry missed numerous scoring opportunities in the first half. And then near the end of the game, you know, you would think Kerry would have the quality with a man extra, with tired bodies, to just be able to hold on to possession, not take the ball into contact, all the good things that you talk about. But Dublin's just manic work rate. They're absolute, you know, kamikaze type stuff, but really brave in terms of hunting down the ball, leaving players behind them to go and put pressure on the ball carrier.
It was desperate from Dublin. We're losing our 5 in a row. We need this ball back.
It's incredible stuff. And like, to be able to, you know, I think anyone who has it should probably just watch the last 15 minutes back again. You know, all of the massive turnovers from Dublin players, like Kevin McMenamin came in and made a couple of phenomenal tackles, Connolly with a tackle as well. Like, it was just the ferocity of effort from the Dublin players at the end of the game was huge. And that's not to take anything away from Kerry, because Kerry drove that throughout the course of the game. But when the game was there and their title was on the line, they deserve phenomenal credit with a man down to just find something. Like, that's not to do with tactics or skill on the ball or any of those things. That's just pure character. And, you know, they had it in spades, as they've shown throughout the years. But that was the biggest test I'd say they've ever had.
Oh, definitely. And even Dean Rock at one stage, after a kick out, they all came converging on whoever was after winning it. And Dean Rock didn't go. He went to the goalie just not to give the handy out. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, it was almost like, we'll talk about the Kerry press and stuff like that in part 2. Because you're following the ball, Dublin had to leave players completely free. It's just Kerry couldn't get the composure to pick them out. You were saying Geaney was free. I know that they had overlaps under the Hogan stand twice. They just couldn't get enough.
They couldn't get their head up.
Couldn't get their head up to pick them out.
Yeah, there was blue jerseys coming at the ball carrier or the man in possession every time he got it. So, you know, in the deafening noise, you can't hear anybody calling for a pass. Your mind is scrambled. You know, the atmosphere is incredible, and all of a sudden you get the ball. You're trying to control the ball. You're tired, and then there's just these big blue jerseys coming at you with huge physicality and, you know, proper, really good tackling as well. You know, you step past one man and all of a sudden another man hits you. You have to avoid him and you're straight into the third tackler, and it's like, you can't get the ball away. So, you know, look at it. Dublin deserve massive credit for the ability at that stage of a contest, with all the energy that had been expended by both teams, to be able to just bring that level of ferocity, you know, right at the end of the game is is just an incredible stuff, and it was amazing to watch that in the last few minutes.
I
really.
don't think any team would be able to do what they did, the man down. If it was the other way around, Kerry wouldn't have got the ball back off Dublin. You sense they wouldn't have, and I think that's Peter Keane said after the game. He says, and he has a good point here, even though he gives so little away. Like I saw his interview, it was comical. Like I mean, Jesus. He says, at the end of the day, we weren't in an All-Ireland final since 2015. We have a young team. What they're going to get only experience out of the game. This is there's a learning curve. I said all along we're in a crash course of a learning curve, and it's only helping out. No matter how confident as a county Kerry are, and they are incredibly confident, in the back of all those players' minds to be going up going, we want to fight. Are we as good as these? And now, going up to the replay, they can potentially say, we are as good as these. We have a match for there, fellas, and we can cause them an awful lot of problems.
Yeah, and what I also think, people are starting to say that Kerry might have left it behind when they went to point up. They sort of shit themselves a little bit, they didn't push on, but they will be thinking coming up the road the next day that they were 5 points down with 56 minutes on the clock against Dublin, the most risk-averse, best team that we've seen probably ever. So to come back from 5 points down and they go 1 point up like that will be serious credit in the bank for them in their heads.
The only problem is a lot of the Dublin players will be really pissed off with their performances. And did you see what Jack McCaffrey did yesterday after a bad game against Mayo? So, don't piss those lads off if they have a bad game. But like the Spillane goal, it's always a strange one. You watch the Spillane goal and it was a phenomenally good goal. And when a goal goes into Hill 16, I was actually thinking, is that goal being disallowed? The Hill goal, it's just like, is that surreal what's after happening? Nobody cheers because the camera is on the hill and it's just deathly silence. And then you're wondering, is the goal been disallowed? I think it's weird when opposition score a goal into the Hill 16.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's an eerie kind of a feel. Well, having scored a goal
into
the Hill.
Actually, speaking of that,
it's strange because you scored a goal, and despite the fact there's a massive crowd in front of you where you're after kicking the ball in, all the noise is coming from left or right or behind you.
Right,
there's just no noise from directly in front of you. So,
crossed arms.
It is better. Would you believe I scored a goal into Hill myself, but it wasn't against Dublin. No, the hill was empty. So there was no it was against me. It was against me actually.
Yeah, no, I must have forgot that.
Did you still give it the old big into the Hill?
Oh no, I turned. There was a pocket of Laois supporters in the Hogue, and I turned around to them.
Wally, I think you got your comeuppance shortly after that, did you?
I did, anyways. But listen, this is All Ireland review. No matter how much I like to talk about scoring goals, did you see Cluxton's reaction, which is very out of character? So the Spillane scored the goal. Cluxton wasn't at fault. He was kind of unsighted. It went under. It was a desperate tackle by Howard, and Cluxton's reaction, I would have thought the ball bounced out into your hand, Cluxton, put it on your tee, get it away. He drove it back into the goals, like a bit of petulance. And Cluxton was having such an amazing game, and they were 5 up. This only put 2 in it. I just thought it was a strange reaction from Cluxton.
Yeah, well, to be fair, if you look at how that goal came about, and Cluxton is a bit like, he's almost like a manager on the pitch for Dublin, really. And I know he's in goal, so he can't get the messages a lot, but he's watching a lot of the game and he can see what's happening. The goal came from Paddy Small taking on a shot that dropped short into the goalkeeper's hands. And then the second mistake that Dublin made was, there was
Davy
3
Byrne
mistakes. Davy Byrne dropped it. It was a difficult one. He was backtracking. He got both hands on it. It would have been a spectacular catch if he'd held it. But when he dropped it and Tommy Walsh picked it up, Mick Fitzsimons left Spillane and went across to put pressure on Tommy Walsh, which was a crazy thing to do. That was a bad defensive decision. If he stayed with Spillane, there was no goal. So Dublin had 3 attempts to prevent the goal, and they made the wrong decision or poor execution in terms of skill on each of those 3 occasions. And Cluxton is watching all of this and he thinks they're 5 points up. Well, we should be closing this game out. But yeah, and I think I'm not too sure that he kicked the kick out straight to Tommy Walsh then.
He did. Well, he was trying to kick it out to Fenton and Walsh read it. And
yeah, but even still, it's correct what you're saying. Like if you're to point that out, if that was any other goalkeeper doing that, you'd say, oh, he's lost the plot. So I think that there's a lot of coverage, and there was a lot of stuff in the commentary of the game as well about how Cluxton is having this, magnificent game, and there was a lot of talk about his kickouts. He kicked all his kickouts long to guys that he expects to field the ball. There was nothing special about anything he did from his kickouts, and they lost a number of them, and they won some of them, and they got scores out of them. But what he did was he played the percentage. He played them long. He didn't put his team under any risk short, and of course he made 2 magnificent saves. But there was an awful lot of talk about how imperious he was with his kickouts. He didn't do the reason he was good from his kickouts because he didn't try to do anything too smart. The one that he did try to do clever, Tommy Walsh intercepted it and should have kicked the score, and he got lucky that it went wide.
Yeah. And that one, you could see, I don't know if it was a Fenton or Howard, but whoever it was, were gesturing back to him then, and that's when you started to feel like, geez, this is starting to come off.
Yeah, they'd won a few of his kickouts in that period. When Tommy Walsh, we'll talk about that in part 2, Tommy Walsh's substitution changed the game completely, not just from his impact, but tactically. Instead of Murphy being a sweeper, he marked someone, and now they played with an extra forward, and Dublin were all over the place dealing with this. We'll talk about that in part 2 because we have to talk about David Gough's performance, and I thought it was a very good performance by David Gough. We'll start with the penalty. For me, any other ref, it's probably a harsh penalty. But with David Gough, I've no sympathy on Cooper. David Gough's thing, and all referees have a thing, and David Gough's thing is do not be pulling your man off the ball because I will blow that. And the point when Johnny Cooper pulled Gough or pulled Clifford was when Clifford just was following the flight of the ball. By the time Clifford came back around from being pulled, Cluxton had a cut. So he made a huge difference. It was minimal contact, but he made a huge difference in Clifford being able to go for that ball. Do you know? So for me, it was a penalty all day long.
Oh, it's the most obvious penalty you'll ever come across now. Johnny Cooper had his back to the ball. He had his arms wrapped around Clifford, and then he had a pull of his jersey. I mean, on 3 separate occasions there, he's fouled him.
Yeah.
Technically. Now, I know everyone will waffle on about how it's, the contact is maybe minimal, but there can be no debate that Clifford is trying to read the flight of the ball.
Yeah.
His direct opponent
is putting him off.
Is not facing the ball, and he has his hands wrapped around him. Like, how more obvious does a foul get?
Yeah, no, it's true. And this is David Gough, who's watching out for stuff like that.
Like, this is Gough's thing, as you correctly point out. He does this in every single game. I've played in club games and he does it regularly. He's always keeping defenders honest, because when the ball is, about to be played in and you go to make a run, the lad grabs you. I mean, it's a foul. Just because referees don't see it most of the time doesn't make it not a foul.
I remember the first time I saw Gough doing this, it was the Connacht final 3 years ago when Roscommon beat Galway, and I was giving out shit about this because I'd never seen Gough doing this before, and I was like, that's very harsh. But you're 3 years knowing what this lad's thing is, and they will have discussed the referee and they will have discussed what he doesn't like. So Cooper was his discipline was not good enough, and he got caught by Gough at what Gough is looking at for. Yeah. So no sympathy whatsoever. Penalty.
He's not asking a lot. It's just don't put your hands on the defender and pull him. Like, it's very clear what he's asking for. Yeah. And like, it's a hard rail. Let a lot of stuff go. Like, his games are always very physical. But if you're technically fouling someone by grabbing them, then it's a foul.
But I mean, even if Cooper is facing the ball and he has his arm across, and the two guys are sort of wrestling, but they're both facing the ball,
you'll get away with that.
There won't be a free given, but he had his back to the play when his hands wrapped around him. I mean, come on.
That's it. And Dublin got away with Cluxton coming off his line, and Gough had a good view of that. So I thought Gough potentially got that wrong. The reason I'm saying this is because Jim Gavin said after the game, he says, we didn't get a rub of the green in that regard on calls. But that happens in games. Sometimes you get these calls and some you don't. And I don't know how they didn't get a rub of green, because, the Cooper red, this is very black and white for me as well. So he got a tick for the penalty. Then he got his first yellow, slightly harsh. I think Clifford sewed him up the river there and dramatically fell back to get him the yellow. Now, Cooper again had his hands on him. You see John Small tried to do it to Tom O'Sullivan late in the game, sewed him up for a yellow, and O'Sullivan got a tick for it. Now, the reason Cooper didn't get a tick for that is probably only a tick offence is because he got ticked for the penalty. So now this is his second personal foul. He's getting a yellow. And then the last one is the most blatant foul I've ever seen. Clifford expertly uses his body to shield Cooper away from the ball. Cooper had committed, and now Clifford has him turned. So Cooper, in desperation, if Cooper just ran into the back of him, he might have got away with it. But he had missed him because Clifford had sidestepped him, and now he was going to be going flying out the other side of him. So he grabbed onto his arm to stop it and pulled Clifford with him. How could anybody? I went into at half time, and genuinely, I wasn't going to even mention this because it's just so dumb. Joe Brawley was saying it was a free out, and so was Kieran Whelan. Like, there was disbelief up amongst the journalists watching this. It was junior B level analysis now. This was not a free out in any shape or form. It was a second yellow, and it was a stonewall red card.
You see, just on that, like, so the first yellow you talked about might have been harsh, but it doesn't have to be a yellow card offence. So when you have a tick, a second tick is a yellow card.
Personal foul. And Gough went down to him. I think Gough actually held up 3 fingers. That's your third foul.
Yeah.
And
So 2 ticks amounts to a yellow card, no matter if it's a yellow card offence or not.
I get
and
you.
then the third tick doesn't have to be a yellow card. If you get a third tick when you're already on a yellow, then you're off.
Right. But that was a yellow offence,
Yeah,
though,
it was.
you know?
Yeah, I think it was a black card, maybe, which would have been a red anyway. Like, yellow plus black.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah. Like,
how could anyone argue that was a free the other way? Like, I mean, that's just beyond belief now. Like, I mean, if I went on to RTE and I gave that analysis at half time and I never got asked back, I would say that's fair enough. I got that so wrong. Yeah. And you're influencing people on that. People that might not understand it or have played the game. That Clifford did brilliantly there. And Cooper got sold up the river.
Look, it's the oldest trick in the book as an inside forward, that you have the kamikaze defender trying to win a ball he's never going to win. And that's Cooper does this. That he's a sort of a reckless enough defender at times. He was going, it's what makes him excellent when it works out, but he was going full out to get the ball. Clifford slightly steps towards his right. Clifford would have gathered possession in the ball with his left hand,
and he was away the other way.
And he had Cooper spun, and he was heading for goal. The only reason Clifford wasn't able to gain possession of the ball was because Johnny Cooper grabbed him with both hands, grabbed Clifford's right arm with both hands, and dragged him to the ground. I mean, I'm astonished at
it's astonishing, right?
That this is even a talking point. That any of these decisions are a talking point. They're not. It's blatantly obvious to anybody who has watched football, anybody who has played football, and Johnny Cooper will absolutely know himself that he gave the referee a call to make, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, no, it's that. We'll move on from that, because it's not even something that we'll ever debate, because it was just so obvious. I did think that Dublin needed to take Cooper off Clifford. Clifford had a very mixed bag. He some terrible wides and a really bad one into the goalie's hands near the end when they needed it. And he was roasting Cooper. And now he's on a tick, right? Leave that go. Now you're on a yellow. You have to take him off then. It's too risky otherwise. And Jim Gavin said after game, I thought he was doing okay. David Clifford is a fantastic player. He wasn't doing okay. He was being roasted.
No,
he was being roasted, and he was being isolated in there too. And it was a bizarre matchup to begin with, because Cooper has kind of made a career on marking from the front and predicting out in front, and then Geaney had put manners on him with that ball for the penalty. Now Cooper's all over the place. Clifford's running in behind him, and they were getting ball up the field. Cooper played a lot of his football wing back. He's a good man marker, but against a Tyrone where he's predicting out in front and they're not going to kick it that much. He's not a good man. Fitzsimons is your man as the last man in there. As the...
Yeah, well, there was no comparison between the marking job that Fitzsimons did and Cooper did. Like, Fitzsimons did a brilliant job with Clifford when he was on him. Cooper was all over the place. Now, look, unfortunately for him, he just had a bad game. Like,
is he capable of having a good game on Clifford in that position?
It's one of the first. It's probably the first time I can ever remember having to say it, but the Dublin matchup there was completely wrong.
Yeah.
It was the wrong matchup, and I don't know how the Dublin management ever thought it would be the right matchup.
That's before the game.
Yes.
So now he's on a yellow. The very obvious thing is to go back to the matchup that was that little bit more obvious.
Yeah, well, it's a reflection of the day Dublin had overall. I mean, Dublin's players, a lot of them didn't play that well. They didn't execute as they usually do. They were way below par, and their management didn't have a good game either.
We'll talk about that a bit more in part 2 as well.
Fair enough.
Their management had a terrible day at the office. I think they froze. I think they completely froze on a lot of things, and they wouldn't be used to being in that position. They're usually winning games comfortably. And Kerry were rattling them. We'll just go through one or two more incidents, because the Thomas Sullivan, a lot of people trying to say that was a second yellow. He got a tick for it. John Small completely exaggerated the foul. He was going back before Sullivan put a hand on him. It's not a yellow card offence, it's a tick, and it was his second one. So if he did that again, that's his yellow, and he's gone. On
that occasion, even only, like, I would say that when you see that in real time, it looks like, geez, it looked like an awful tackle. Yeah. But when you watch it in a replay, Tom Sullivan barely does anything.
Barely touched him.
You could actually say that it's never given, but I mean, John Small's legs were in the air before.
Yeah. It was simulation.
It was basically a dive.
How brave of that was that of Gough? Because the crowd roared, now the whole culture of evening the numbers up. Gough was brilliant in that scenario to calmly tick him, put his note back. Boos rang out around the stadium, and he didn't. I thought Gough had an outstanding game, because the Stephen O'Brien penalty, some people are complaining, it wasn't a penalty. It would have been the softest penalty ever. O'Brien went to shoot. McCaffrey's just kind of touching his arm, and he accentuated it as well. I couldn't fault Gough yesterday at all, other than the Cluxton coming off his line. And I don't know. I often think they're often harsh penalties, anyways. You know, or to a retake or whatever for that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I suppose technically that was probably the only one that
technically he got wrong.
Maybe he got it wrong, but at the same time, go on. Sorry, no, go on.
There was a foul by Diarmuid Connolly on Jonathan Lyne at the end.
At the very end.
That was a bad call.
A trip. Yeah,
that was a bad call. He tripped him. But other than those two, I think he got most of the call. He got all of the calls right in a difficult bloody game to ref.
Brave calls to make as well, as you say, and especially with all the pressure and narratives that were going on coming into the game.
I think that really needs to be taken into account. Like, I mean, when have you ever heard in the build up to a game? Like, nobody knows who the referee is. Like, the fact that his name was in the paper and there was all sorts of talk about him and questioning his character and all this sort of stuff. Like, personally, if I was a referee in that situation, I'd say, look, to hell with it, I couldn't be arsed with this. Why would you put yourself in that place? And then you have the pressure of the game. You have a massive crowd there putting extensive pressure because they all just roar for every decision that goes against their team. They don't care whether it's right, wrong or indifferent.
Yeah.
Players are constantly putting the referee under pressure. So it takes a massive amount of sort of fortitude and courage to continue to just apply the rules, you know, which is, and sometimes these calls are very difficult to judge. It happens so fast, it's marginal. Sometimes something can look a lot worse than it actually is. He has no benefit of any replays or anything like that.
He was close. He was very lucky. He was close to the Thomas Sullivan foul. His positioning was brilliant, so he saw it. Really good, he saw it. Yeah. I was surprised he didn't actually have a word with John Small, because looking from the press box, I was thinking O'Sullivan could be in trouble here, because when you put your hand across, you don't know how much you pull.
Yeah.
But Thomas Sullivan didn't really pull. John Small just felt his hand and went to ground, and then had a word with Gough running past. Did you see John Small doing that?
Yeah.
But he was under pressure too. He went on a yellow too, and I thought he might have been changed. But Dublin were all over the place. One or two small ones here. Oh yeah, Dublin won the toss and went into the hill. We were talking about this last Thursday. So this dynamic has changed. So Cluxton went into the hill 16 the first half. I don't really have much more to say about this other than it's happened again.
Other than I was right, says Colin Parkinson.
No, John Fogarty was right. I don't think anyone can be right on this. We're just pointing. We were actually wondering what the hell is going on, that usually they go into the hill in the second half. Another funny one, I thought. Two funny ones. So Kerry ran out in the field during the Cork minor presentation, which was completely out of order. Like, I mean, I know the game went to extra time, but they ran out. Dublin gave them another 4 minutes, but Kerry were out warming up as the Galway players were still looking at the presentation. Now, I don't know if this is a Kerry-Cork rivalry thing. Like, I know they're only young lads, but give them the 2 minutes to enjoy that moment, I thought. I know these things are all timed. The parade turned along the 45 instead of marching along the 21 in front of the hill, and the hill all started booing. I hadn't seen that before. I don't know if that's an All-Ireland final thing. Don't know if you noticed it on television, but they came to the 45, came across there to loads of boos. They were letting off a flare, the Dubs on hill. Usually they go down to the 21 and you get it right. And I would say both Kerry and Dublin players would have not enjoyed that. Like, walking in front of the hill like that, I've done it once and it was a cool thing to do, you know. You're down right in front of them parading around, and no pressure. Well, there's pressure on you, but the game's not on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can have an old look. Last one is, there was an American comedian, Josh Prey, talking to the crowd at halftime. Now, you might have seen him on Facebook, and very unfunny fella, just shouting and roaring about how hurling's crazy, man, and how Gaelic football's mad and camogie. It's just funny when I look at the likes of this. He was up in the press box shouting and roaring. I don't find it funny at all, but how desperate the GAA is for any sort of outsider to like our game. So this lad spoke to the crowd in the stadium. So he had about 2,000 Twitter followers. Now he's about 16 since he started talking about hurling and football and all, mostly Irish. It's just an American fella who thinks hurling, and now he's got a ticket to the game and he's speaking to the whole crowd. Like, it's like the desperation for the English Twitter reaction to hurling, and to when it was on Sky. Like, why are we so needy for other people to love the GAA games the same as we do? is it a weird one?
Yeah, it's like just a need to be validated. Like, but look, I put out a tweet about this yesterday, and it's one of the biggest regrets I've ever had in my life. I felt like Willie for a second. They saw all these streams of abuse coming in.
I sent him a picture of him because me and him agreed last week, this lad's so unfunny. Like, how are even people liking this? And then he was up in the press box, and I sent Conan a picture, like Conan's sitting at home, and this lad's up in the press box.
This what a smack in the face. You cover club, college, you do all the county games, league, whatever else, and then Josh Praise up in the press box.
Go on, Josh. Yeah. Okay.
Fair play to him. I'm jealous of him.
Right, we'll come back in part 2 and look at the match. So the first 15 minutes, lads, first 17 minutes, Kerry were 5-4 up. They were well on top. They were playing brilliantly well. Not only were they 5-4 up, Clifford had missed 2 or 3 that he had to put over, 2 that were just gimmies for the likes of him. They'd missed a Guinea goal chance cleared off the line by James McCarthy. They had the penalty miss, and that Stephen O'Brien with a half chance off his left to went for right. They arguably, conservatively, could have been 2-7 to 4 points up. Isn't that, you know what I mean? Crazy. They didn't make hay. Then Dublin got the goal against the run of play, and then probably for the second half of the first half, Dublin were the better team.
Yeah, look, they'll be disappointed. Kerry will be disappointed with their execution. And in fairness, you haven't even included David Moore and kicked it wide. It was from distance, but the 2 that Clifford missed, 2 point scoring opportunities, definitely should have got them. Look, obviously a missed penalty is always going to go down as a big miss, and Stephen O'Brien got the point. So yeah, like they can
the Guinea goal chance off
the line as well. Like, even look, there's guarantee.
Most days, 1-2 out
most days there's an additional 1-2 on the scoreboard, and on a really good day you take all of those chances.
Yeah.
So when you play against Dublin, unfortunately you keep them in the game if you don't really take those chances. And in fairness to Kerry, they were superb on the restarts from Cluxton. They really kept Dublin pinned in and created these chances for themselves. So they'll be desperately disappointed with the missed opportunities, but they'll also take a huge amount of positives going into the next day from how well they did. They did.
Now, they did well for that first 17 minutes. Then Cluxton started finding his men. Now, that press is so aggressive, lads, that I took a picture of it yesterday. It's 2-on-4 down the way. We know that's Mannion and Conn being left on their own, right? So that creates panic, right? Because you know how important this press is. And after any Sean O'Shea free or 45, Clifford was desperately calling everybody down. Like, there's nothing unusual in that. But when Howard caught that ball, there's panic stations then with the Kerry players. They're all over the place. This was, you can't let Dublin, if that press is on, they can't win a clean ball. You have to break it, slow it down, and let it get back in. The worst case scenario, the worst, is that Dublin get a fetch and a mark. Now you're in big trouble. Now, I thought Dublin were slow on a couple of occasions of getting it down, but from the 70 minute on, they hit that press for 1-2, and then Kerry abandoned it in the second half. But they had to abandon it.
Yeah, I think so, because Dean Rock got a ball from deep as well. Cluxton started targeting.
He caught a great one. That under the Hogan,
That was a superb catch.
It was, yeah.
And like Howard, you mentioned, he got 2 like that one. It was 1 pass to Paul Mannion, and they ended up getting a score out of it. The McCaffrey goal, was like 3 passes, and it was in just from that ball over the top, and then Kerry completely exposed.
And that's the thing. And you talk about the McCaffrey goal now, right? So some people said back to me yesterday, that didn't make any difference to the goal because McCaffrey ran from deep and he could have done that anyway. It did, because Morley and these guys are trying to desperately get back on their men. They're not set up properly. By the time they're back, have their hand on their man. Now McCaffrey's bearing in under 21, and I thought Morley's defending for that was poor. He stayed with Mannion. He let McCaffrey come right in and score when the right thing was to do, at least come out and make Jack double guess himself.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that it was Tom O'Sullivan was the one that I spotted in that one. In fairness, because Morley did have a man, but who was close to goal in terms of Morley was with Mannion. Mannion was at risk of getting a pass, say, for example. And look, Morley made the wrong decision. He should have come across earlier and made McCaffrey make a pass. But Tom Sullivan could see, he was on Con O'Callaghan. Con O'Callaghan just sort of jogged out the field and did a little bit of a loop. No interest in getting on the ball, while Jack McCaffrey was searing through the middle. Tom Sullivan should have left Con O'Callaghan, and if he had left Con O'Callaghan, there was no goal. There was absolutely no goal unless McCaffrey was able to beat him. And all he had to do, there was a number of Kerry defenders chasing back, like obviously no one can catch McCaffrey.
But is there an element in this of, he runs back to find his man, and
Oh,
then when
yeah.
he finds him, he's like not inclined to
Yes,
leave him again. You know,
totally agree. He just didn't see. He didn't look. We've spoken about it an awful lot. He just didn't see the danger early enough. And in fairness to Tom Sullivan, he's such a really tight, sticky man marker that's kind of what he does. He just stays with his own man. But on that occasion, the right decision was to leave Con O'Callaghan and get across and cover the centre because McCaffrey was steaming through the middle. Now, like I'd say, Kerry, when they look back at the video, will be able to point out a number of players that contributed to it. Like when Jack McCaffrey started his run, he ran actually for the length of the field, he ran past 6 Kerry defenders.
right?
And he ran past 3 of them that were competing for the ball. You know, Gavin White being one of them. I can't remember who the other 2 were. They just didn't react immediately and get into a sprint. Like if they got into a sprint, you know, the sort of thing when you lose possession and everybody for a split second switches off.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden then the forward has the run on you and you're gone. And that was just what happened. And Kerry could have easily prevented that goal by reacting quicker and by their players making better defensive decisions.
Yeah.
They could have prevented the goal.
It's a weird one with that Howard catch because he caught it over Gavin White, and Adrian Spillane had been detailed to mark Howard. So I don't know where Spillane had disappeared to at that stage, but he should have been there because he could have competed with him. Gavin White was completely out of his comfort zone jumping with Howard. But I thought that Kerry starting Jack Barry, I thought that would have been at the expense of Adrian Spillane. But no, Spillane went to follow Howard, which was another good matchup. And now Barry and Moran were well on top in midfield. And they shared the Fenton duties, which was a weird one. It was like, it's hard to understand who's picking who up. But Barry was trying to pick up Fenton. But I have a feeling Fenton was marking Moran for the he was marking Moran for the kickouts, you know. So there was a bit of confusion here, but it was not the man marking job from Jack Barry on Fenton I was expecting.
No, certainly not. Like Jack Barry got involved in the play an awful lot and got on a good bit of ball.
He won one of those good kickouts early on.
Phenomenal catch. Falling backwards. Yeah, it was brilliant. He actually had a very good game for a fellow who hasn't played a huge amount of football in the championship. But yeah, look, sometimes the games just go a bit frantic. Like when you think that Kerry are playing with a zonal press on the Dublin kick-out, which are because it's zonal, they can't pick, you know, they're not going man
someone else up then.
So then when the play breaks, if Dublin get possession, they're probably just picking up the nearest man to them and taking a bit of responsibility from that.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. But Howard is the go-to man for the kickouts when all else is failing.
Doubt, yeah.
Cluxton's looking for Howard. That's how important he's become, and he won a couple of really good ones in the second half as well. But that's it. It's hard to know with that press now, lads, because it is so aggressive. That when Cluxton realised that, well, I suppose he was trying to go long on all of them.
To be fair, Wooly, like that's what I was saying.
I don't know if I persist with it.
He wasn't specific. He tried to do it a few times. It's just that, like, if you kicked him long, he wasn't going to go short because he realised Kerry had a massive numerical, you know, they had a numerical advantage there. They were going to pin Dublin in and put them under severe pressure. He would have been selling a man down the river now if he popped a short ball to him standing still. So he was kicking to the third line of the Kerry zone.
The wall,
press.
as Conan called it.
So they had 4 across their full forward line, 4 in the half forward line, and 4 across the middle of the field. So Cluxton was hitting that third zone of 4. And what they had then was Rock and Howard would start further back and try to run into that. You know, Kerry, the fourth zone or the third zone out for Kerry were standing there in a zone, in a position. The Dublin players stood behind that and tried to make a run so that if Cluxton could hang it up or get distance on it, that they would be attacking the ball from behind and be able to do what Howard did, which was climb on Gavin White's back to get up and catch the ball, and Rock did it before that. Like if you look at the Jack Barry catch, Jack Barry is running backwards almost to try and get up and catch that ball. So it was right on the limit. So Cluxton, he was going for Howard because Howard's his go-to man. He's not going to kick it to David Moore and he's trying to keep it away from him. He's going to that zone. He kicked a few of them out there. Kerry won some. Dublin won some. I mean, that's, to be crediting Cluxton to say, he cracked the press. He didn't. He kicked the ball to the same place he kicked some that they lost, but they just happened to, like, if you look at the catches, Rock made an incredible catch, Howard made an incredible catch, and before that Jack Barry made an incredible catch. Other than that, ball was broken and on the ground.
That's what's always happened in midfield now. You'll win some and you'll lose some.
And you lose some. And it's a better thing than kicking it to your corner back, who's going to be pinned in by 3 or 4 Kerry forwards.
Kerry went short a lot in the first half, didn't they, with their kickouts? And I think they went a bit longer in the second half. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, they did until I think Dublin started tiring a little bit. So I was looking at the last 25 minutes, and Kerry won 6 of their 7 kickouts, and Dublin only won 4. So Cluxton gave away 3 balls, which is when Kerry got back into
around
the
the
game.
Tommy Walsh impact. Yeah,
and David Moran had a big catch around there as well, but it started to open up a bit more. I don't know, was it just the legs with the lack of numbers, or McCauley being
Dublin don't press as aggressively as Kerry do. I mean, Dublin Dublin nearly always there's always a spare defender in the opposition's full back line when Dublin are pressing. They kind of go zonal between men because they want to have men further back out the field.
They didn't do that aggressive press they did against Mayo. Dublin didn't do that in the whole game, which was bizarre.
Well, I suppose
Kerry
they were down
doing it.
They were down a man for a large period, so you can kind of understand it a little bit. But having said that, Dublin don't go as aggressive as Kerry on the press. You know, they don't, because they don't want to leave themselves fully exposed further back.
They did against Mayo. They did the Kerry press against Mayo, but Mayo don't have enough danger. I don't think Dublin, being a little bit conservative, were like, it's a little bit risky against Kerry. If Moran catches it, he'll move. You know what I mean? He'll move it down. Dublin changed that press. Dublin did that against Mayo and destroyed them with it, and I didn't see it once.
So this is interesting because against Mayo, it was only James Carr and Killian O'Connor left in the 45, and Dublin had 2 players marking them.
And Dublin knew Kerry would leave 4 up there, so they'd have to abandon 2. Yeah. And Dublin are happy to move them all up, but I don't know if they're happy of just leaving a man free.
They're not happy to leave free men behind them. Now, they might change that the next day, having seen how effective it was for Kerry and having seen how effective it was for them at the end of the game.
Was it effective for Kerry when Dublin hit it for 1-2?
It was effective for Kerry because Kerry dominated the game.
They dominated the first 17 minutes.
In my view, you can't abandon a system that works because there are individual components within it that made mistakes. I mean, that's why coaches play with a blanket defence, because they don't trust defenders. They say, I'm going to take any element of risk out of this. I'm going to play 15 men behind the ball. You know, it's just a different way of viewing the game.
Yeah. You're okay. So Kerry could have had 2-6 and Dublin would have got the 1-2. So
but they wouldn't have. They mightn't have got the 1-2 if their players had executed exactly as. Like, you don't go out to, like, there's ways of looking at the game. It's like, do you press up into midfield and say we're going to win the ball here and we're going to press them high, or do you say, oh lads, what if we lose? And sure, if you say what if we lose, then you end up playing with men behind the ball and you'll never win the ball high up the pitch.
You're right.
So it's just
but they did give it up though, which was interesting.
I think at times you probably have to, because the energy in the team mightn't be good. And if you look at some of the scores Kerry got, maybe in the second half they got a couple that were sort of on the break, or where it was a broken down attack or a ball that dropped short, say, into the Kerry goalkeeper's hands, and they broke up the field with some kick passing. It's a big effort then for all your players to get back up the field and set, particularly the longer the game goes on. So I think at times there would be in a position to press that and do it well, and there'll be other times where they're after building their attack from their own defence. They just physically can't do it.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't. But you can trust me, because I was there. The aggressive press where they were just leaving 2 Dublin forwards didn't happen in the second half. Not that I could see. Anyways, the big turning point in this game, because I was saying Adrian Spillane picked up Howard, which meant one of the Kerry defenders was kind of freed up, and it was Murphy, who wasn't free all the time because the game's so helter-skelter and he might have to pick someone up, but he was trying to drop in the first half a little bit. In the second half then, when Cooper got sent off, Brian Howard went wing back. Now Kerry had Murphy as a free man, and he was their spare man until the 52nd minute, until Tommy Walsh came on. Dublin were 4 points up at that stage. Kerry were making no inroads with a conservative, and we always said this on the show here, it's just tradition in Gaelic football. If you have a spare man, he plays at the back, right? They were getting nowhere with this tactic, because Dublin generally won't kick it to a sweeper. When do you see a sweeper intercepting a Dublin pass? They don't happen. They're all diagonal balls now. But anyways, Tommy Walsh came on for Brian O'Bugley. Murphy went on Bugley's man. Now Walsh is an extra forward. Now Dublin don't know whether they're coming or going, right? So Dublin froze. I couldn't believe it. So James McCarthy goes in on Walsh. Sean O'Shea is free. Sean O'Shea is playing out round midfield, and there's nobody really marking him. Can you believe that? Like, he ran amok in the last 20 minutes. He scored 2 from play and was on lots of ball. But that was just bizarre, because the natural thing from any management, right, I'll see what you're after doing there. So whether I want to or not, I have to take off a forward and bring on a back. That's what you have to do in that scenario. Kerry have just brought on an extra forward for a back, and Dublin didn't do anything about it. Like, Dublin brought on a sub for Michael Darmacaulay, Paddy Small, in the 52nd minute. They didn't make another substitution until the 67th minute. They froze. They absolutely froze. And they took off a big man for a little kind of forward. I think at that stage, Kieran Kilkenny went to midfield. It was just bizarre. I couldn't believe what I was watching, that their only reaction to the Tommy Walsh substitution was James McCarthy going him. And what happens to James McCarthy's man? Yeah. And he was having a great battle with Sean O'Shea. Now, unless Scully was trying to pick him up, I saw...
Or did Howard go in centre back maybe, or something?
Howard was staying wing back, but Howard was marking somebody at that stage, So I don't know. It didn't seem smart not to take a forward off and bring on a back, and at least have your matchups kind of right back there.
Yeah. Well, I suppose when I can't remember who Merchant came on for, but when Merchant came
John
into
Small,
the game, so he had a bit of an impact with fresh legs. But as you say, if there's
that wasn't for a forward.
No, but it's bizarre that you would say that they had. So effectively for the latter stages of the game, Dublin had 5 backs marking 6 Kerry forwards. Really, is what you're saying. For 10 or 15 minutes of the match.
Yeah, no, they had 6 backs because Howard went back instead of Cooper. 6 against 7.
6 against 7.
Yeah, and
that was the situation on the field, lads, and Dublin management did not rectify that.
Yeah, and Sean O'Shea's 2 score, he probably couldn't believe his luck. So he started the first move for his left-footed one. He kicked it down to Walsh, got it to Clifford, and he just came running in completely unmarked. And then David Moran's high ball into Walsh again. Sean O'Shea just comes running in completely unmarked, and eventually boys scramble over and he puts it over. But he was just he was tormenting them anyway.
He was having a great game. And I heard Brawley said on RT afterwards that Sean O'Shea can do better the next day. He was outstanding. We'll talk about him in the second in performance of the weekend. But he was absolutely standing. But I found that crazy. Not only that wasn't the only crazy tactical thing. Kerry took off Gavin White. Gavin White had a bit of a nightmare now, for being honest. He was captain, and I'd say the pressure potentially got to him. Jack McCaffrey was giving him an awful doing. They took off Gavin White, and then there was nobody detailed. Jack McCaffrey wasn't being marked either. Now, I know, it's all just all over the place at that stage, but McCaffrey was after hitting 1-2. White was taken off after his second point, I think, the one with the left.
But it's interesting. I know it's different maybe when you're at the game, but it didn't look like Gavin White was given a man-marking job on Jack McCaffrey at all.
No, it wasn't. No. But he was supposed to be on him.
Right,
he was meant to be on that wing. But McCaffrey was just doing what he wanted.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
because Stephen O'Brien was being picked up by John Small.
Yeah, well, it's a totally different tactical approach than what most teams have decided to do against Dublin, where they push a man who's specifically detailed to man mark Jack McCaffrey.
Yeah,
it didn't look. Kerry didn't do that, and Jack McCaffrey scored 1-3.
1-3.
Yeah, it's.
After seeing how Durkin man-marked him, I'd say the message must have been to Gavin White, well, now give him something to worry about the other way. Well, I'd say no. If that happens, yes. But your main job is to watch him. There are points in the game that if we have an attack, try and make him worry them. But you have to watch him at all. I don't want you off here and now we have a turnover and you're trying to get away from him and now we have a turnover and he's gone. It can't happen.
Yeah.
Durkin just showed what to do.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it that
that was criminal on Jack McCaffrey.
There's no evidence within the performance that Gavin White was given any responsibility related to Jack McCaffrey.
No.
So let's be fair, it's probably unfair to mention he was getting through a lot of work all over the field and playing his own game in the same way that Stephen O'Brien was playing his own game. But Jack McCaffrey is just too dangerous a player really to leave sort of free. You kind of sometimes have to sacrifice a little bit of something to make sure that Jack McCaffrey is watched.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake from the Kerry management team that they hadn't made that call.
Yeah.
I think that was the one, probably one of the mistakes they made.
A really big one now, and that's being hit for 1-3 over a mistake, and that's after Durkin just literally every time Jack McCaffrey took off on a run, he went on that run with him. And that's not rocket science, guys. He's a very dangerous player going forward.
Yeah, and then gave him something to worry about going in the other direction.
And Gavin White's a defender.
Yeah, if you look at it, McCaffrey only touched the ball in his own half 5 times. So that's how little he had to do in defence. He didn't even have to take the ball out of defence. He could just go forward completely free and pick it up in dangerous areas. And I was trying to think, why would Kerry do that? But maybe that's the only way that they thought they could limit Con O'Callaghan and Paul Mannion
by getting those players back.
And it's too hard to cover all these bases.
It is. And offering Jack McCaffrey onto you, though, that's where he revels. Leaving him outside and then he'll come on a burst and now you're at 6s and 7s then with his pace. But it was bizarre. But we discussed last week, Keane, about Tommy Walsh starting. I was thinking you have to start him because it's exactly what Dublin don't want. And James McCarthy went in on him like we all predicted. Now James McCarthy, who was having a good battle against Sean O'Shea, and he was driving into Sean O'Shea, and Sean O'Shea was taking it and giving it back, and it was great battle to watch the two of them, two outstanding players going at it. But Walsh changed the game. The tactical change of Walsh changed the game where Murphy didn't sweep and now they had an extra forward. That absolutely changed it. But Walsh himself, he set up the goal. Then Moran gave him a beautiful ball, their club mates, over the top. That was textbook, lay it off. Sean O'Shea, in fairness, there was enough Dublin defenders back. It was a brilliant finish. Now he scored a point himself. He kicked a bad wide after winning a kick out. Look how he impacted 5, 10, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Dublin were all over the place when that happened. Now, I do think it was because he was almost an extra forward, as well as him being a really dangerous player.
Yeah, he caused confusion. But look, Tommy Walsh is it's great to see him back, sort of looking like the player that he was before he went away to Australia in terms of just his ability to influence a big game like this. But look, either way, James McCarthy back in full back on Tommy Walsh is not a good matchup for Dublin in any event. I mean, he's been lamped back in there just because he's a big lad.
Yeah.
But he's not a full back and he's not a corner back. So to put him in there on Tommy Walsh is a bad move. Maybe he's the best of what Dublin probably have in there, but there's no doubt about it that it blunts a lot. It takes a huge amount away from what Dublin have out the field, because if you're playing against Dublin, McCarthy is a massive driving force from the half back line. He is a massive physical presence both on his own kickouts and on the opposition's kickouts, and in terms of his physicality and defensive work around that middle third. To have him back in the full back line, you're taking a lot off Dublin and you're putting him into a place where he's not comfortable, and he's going to probably get cleaned out by somebody like Tommy Walsh.
Yeah, no, it is. But who do you deal with Tommy Walsh with? Fitzsimon's the only other one. Maybe Philly McMahon, who might wrestle with him or try and get a body in, who's good at that.
At the minute, based on performances and stuff this season, Dublin don't really have anybody that'll handle him.
No.
If the ball is going in right to Tommy Walsh, Dublin have nobody to handle him.
You just have to watch the layoff.
They just have to try and not, again, you put Philly McMahon in. If it's a bad ball going in, anyone will probably wrestle with him and break it off him. But if it's good quality delivery going into Tommy Walsh, Dublin don't have anyone who can compete with him.
No, there's no,
in my mind.
No, and that's why I think he should probably be starting, because you have that over the full course of a game. And it was almost like we were saying on Thursday, why wait till you're 5 down to spring him? And that's what they did. Well, they were 4 down, and then when he came on, there was another one, and they were in all sorts of trouble. And then I think Moran took over in midfield. That would be fair at that time. He really came into his own, and he's a brilliant player, lads. He's just so stylish, and he's a Rolls Royce of a player. And he made Fenton look ordinary yesterday, there's no doubt about that, and that's very unusual to happen. So it was a combination of Moran coming into it, Walsh giving him that kind of option up there to get it in. Clifford kind of came out to the half forward line there. I thought Geaney battled well throughout without really, he had a very good game, without kind of setting the world alight on the board. I don't think he scored, but he worked really, really hard. It was a different type of performance from him, a battling kind of one.
Yeah, he dropped out very deep. Look, he influenced the game through effort and work rate as opposed to through his silky skills. But even still, he still had a massive influence in some of their key moments in attack. And, it was his pass, his little bit of brilliant skill and a lovely little pass into Clifford that, Johnny Cooper ends up fouling Clifford for the yellow card. So, he was probing and he was causing problems up front as well. But predominantly he had... it was work right across the field. But going back to the whole tactical thing and maybe starting Tommy Walsh, I mean, Kerry decided they wanted Paul Murphy as a sweeper, so they played Adrian Spillane and got him back out on Howard. So it meant that Davy Byrne was basically free for Dublin for the whole game. That's a call Kerry. If Kerry make the call to play Tommy Walsh in the full forward line from the start, and you would have to say, probably Spillane is the man who gets dropped for that role. It means that then Kerry don't have that cover defender in their own defence, and I think that they would be afraid of Dublin's potency in attack in order to do that. So it's a very difficult balancing act for them to go with. You can definitely you can see the benefits of starting Tommy Walsh because it messes Dublin up.
Yeah,
but it's a very hard one to gauge what the best option is.
Here's the thing: how many interceptions did Paul Murphy make as a sweeper? How many double ups did he make where he dispossessed anyone? I know you can be there sometimes, so you might be turned off to kick in. I understand that, but that's hard to prove.
If you think about Con O'Callaghan, when he was getting the ball, he was always beating the first defender, and it was always the second and third defender that would foul him or bottle him up. And that's the thing that you have with a lot of the Dublin players in one-on-one battles. Even though the Kerry defenders defend really, really well one-on-one, those Dublin players get the ball in hand, they will beat the man one-on-one. And it requires a huge amount of work rate from your midfielders or from your half forwards to be able to get back to block up that space if you don't play with a sweeper. Yeah. So personally, that's the way I like to see football being played. I would be more adventurous, and I would be saying let's cause the opposition a problem, but I can still understand
see why they did
I can
it,
understand why they would go with
It
a
wasn't
sweeper.
until they gave that up that they actually well, in the first 70 minutes it was working out well, I suppose. Like, I mean, that system was working out perfect. There's no doubt about that. But like, I mean, we're back down to the last 11 minutes now, which we've kind of covered, and that was the 66 minute. Geez, Kerry really gave as good as they got in that last period. They were, it was Kevin McStay said in the commentary, they're actually getting scores easier than the Dublin, and they were. And the long ball was working. And the long ball worked for Dublin too, but I'd say they only did it twice in the whole game to Con. Like, I'd be surprised they didn't do that a little bit more, Dublin.
Yeah, it's surprising that they didn't probably try and isolate Con O'Callaghan a little bit more.
Because he was running through Kerry players like they didn't even exist.
That's what I mean.
He's transformed himself.
Yeah, and look, despite the fact that Thomas Sullivan is a great matchup for anyone who's trying to look for the ball out in front and look for it short. Like, he's really tigerish and very tight. But any ball that went in between them in a physical, in the air confrontation,
As
Con
a
O'Callaghan,
mismatch, yeah.
it is a slight mismatch, despite the fact that Con's going to have to work very hard for it. So it is surprising that Dublin wouldn't have tried to work that a little bit better to try and isolate Con O'Callaghan inside. I think that's something they'll probably be looking to do a little bit more.
They will learn. They will learn. That's one thing from Dublin. I remember the replay against Mayo. Dublin learned a lot from that draw, and I think they'll do the same again. I suppose that's pretty much for a preview show. I think we've covered it all here. Is there anything else there that I've missed? All right, we'll go to Paddy Power performance of the weekend. Right, so Paddy Power performance of the weekend. We've probably covered Jack McCaffrey enough. His 1-3 from play. He got one with the left, he got a goal with the right, he got a fist past the point, and he got a point with the right. Like, I mean, it's just an array of his absolute brilliance. I didn't realise he had the left on the run. It was from the top of the D, but still, like, I mean, he was being marked, and that's like, he's not known for being left-footed. It was just a fairy tale performance by a player that I know we all love on this show. I don't think any bloody Gaelic football fan wouldn't love Jack McCaffrey. He plays with a smile on his face. He was brilliant, and Kerry might not thank Paddy Durcan for keeping him quiet. That's basically, you know what I mean? He was clearly up for it. I think Kerry not man-marking him was a huge mistake. Like we said, when you're dropping players back behind the ball, and in the second half, when Gavin White went off, there was actually, I was looking at this going, who's on him now? And he was standing around midfield on his own. Do you know what I mean? And this Gavin White got taken off. Let me see what minute Gavin White got taken off. He was taken off in the 48th minute. So for almost half an hour, Jack McCaffrey wasn't really being marked by anyone. Just think about that.
I think at that stage of the game,
he had 1-2 at that stage. He had 1-2 off him.
I think, to be fair, I think if you were detailed to mark Jack McCaffrey and you were after running around for an hour, you'd be looking for strength in numbers as well. You'd be trying to drop 20 yards off him and say, Jack, you can have it in your own half back.
But we know that doesn't work. That's where he's destroyed the likes of Tyrone and these lads. He's getting ahead of steam up. So now you're giving him a free run at you. And a lad with that blistering pace, don't let that. Track that run from source. And like we always analyse here, he won't get that pass if someone's on him. You know what I mean? They won't give it to him out there. They'll just, he's being tracked, and leave it off. So it was just bizarre. 1-3. The top scorer for Dublin, well, Dean Rock obviously from the freeze. 4 Dublin players scored in the entire game out of 19, which is a bizarre one, and only one sub on after 66 minutes. And that is very, very unlike Dublin.
No, well, I suppose we covered it before, and we've been proven correct. Jim Gavin does not trust his bench. He doesn't trust what's there. That's why Connolly was back in, and it's why there was very few substitutions made. They haven't made any impact in any of the games, and the evidence of that, the evidence of the lack of substitutions tells you that he doesn't trust them.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look like it does, and I don't think it is. Like, even Eric Lowndes wasn't there on the bench.
That's very surprising to me.
He's usually a sub that comes on. Like, I mean,
and always does well.
And but wouldn't he be the perfect utility man? Take off a forward, bring on Lowndes, and now he can pick up O'Shea.
Yeah.
Why would you not put him on? Because he can do a job kind of anywhere in that middle third, and he's got
great pace.
He'd be perfect for Sean O'Shea. So that was a really weird one. Dean Rock, I think, deserves a mention for performance of the weekend. The fetch, the clutch point to equalise it. The freeze was perfect. Like, we can't in any way criticise him for the last free. That was an almost impossible. If any critic I would give to it, I would have thought maybe he might have gone short and tried to work a closer in free, because Kerry were under a lot of pressure at that stage.
Yeah, look, it was when he was lining it up, I didn't fancy him to get it, just because I think it's distance-wise it's slightly out of his range. He struggles with the longer ones. He just doesn't have the same distance in his kick as, say, what Sean O'Shea would have. You know, and you take everything into account, the way he had to step off the pitch. There's a slight drop there. Very difficult.
I never thought he'd get that.
No, and as well as that, like, he's 78 minutes in after running around for a long time. I mean, your legs are not exactly fresh. Even after a warm-up and you're feeling fresh, that's still a big kick. So at that stage of the game, I think Jason Sherlock was definitely on, having a word with him before he kicked it. He did take a long time over the free. I think the Dubs looked at it and just says, look, this is the chance. It's why we held on to possession for so long. We drew the free. We've managed this well. This is our chance. You know, have a go at it and see if you can get it. And in fairness, they would have had great faith in Rock. To be honest, very difficult free, you know, very, very tough one to get, particularly taking everything into account. He couldn't be blamed at all for that. You know.
So you got 10
and
points.
He had a great game.
10 points, 3 from play. Have got that fetch, obviously, in midfield. He got 6 frees, 145. Sean O'Shea got 10 points as well. 4 frees, 3 45s and 3 from play. Sean O'Shea is a very impressive free taker, isn't he? Like, I mean, his distance doesn't seem to bother him at all. 45s are nearly gimmies. They're flying way over the bar.
Yeah, like his striking in the first, like all the frees he was getting in the first half from distance, like there was none of them are straightforward frees. They are to him, but to the ordinary free taker, they're not. They're difficult kicks. And they were at the time of the game where you kind of keeping Kerry in it and keeping Kerry ahead. Like, it was like 345s in a match is fair kicking for anybody. Like, I mean, I don't know what the strike rate is in 45s, but I mean, 3 in a game, they're probably at inter-county level, they're probably a lot more than 50-50, but you know, maybe they're 80% strike rate or something. But I mean, that's phenomenal accuracy to do that. Like.
It was important too, because one of them was after the penalty miss, so at least that was only a 2-point miss. Then he got that, and then there was another
one. Was after the crossbar.
That was it. Geaney got blocked down, and he got a 45 from that too. So the 2 goal misses at least turned into a point. That's massive.
Yeah, and you're not, like, you're coming away with something at least. Like, that would be like, we'd all just be talking about these missed chances now for Kerry, but he kept the scoreboard going for them, and I think one of them actually put them back in the lead anyway, even though they'd missed a goal chance. Yeah,
no, it definitely is. So Sean O'Shea, I think he had 23 possessions, which isn't that much, but Jesus, was a great battle. Honestly, that was probably one of the most underrated battles of the whole day, was Sean O'Shea versus James McCarthy, because McCarthy, he wasn't playing the old I let him off and hold into the centre-back position. Oh, when O'Shea won a ball, he bloody, you know what I mean? He really had to win it off James McCarthy. He was going in hard on him. David Moran, I think, was the outstanding midfielder, outstanding throughout. The only blot on his whole day was the turnover at the end, and he should really have not run into that many Dublin players, even though, Jesus, a few occasions in the second half he was bottled up, and amazingly he's able to get out of it. However he does it, and you know, we've talked about this before, where he's being tackled and he's not even paying attention to the fella tackling him. He's just still looking ahead. Beautiful couple of the beautiful ball to Walsh that Byrne caught. That was almost inch perfect, and then the one for the Sean O'Shea point, that was inch perfect. That was lovely. I don't know, lads, I don't want to get into a preview, but like, I mean, Walsh, or Moran and Walsh definitely have an understanding from their time at club, you know, the club together.
They absolutely do, and Moran is such a good kicker of the ball that he's able to put the right flight and angle on the pass from deep in the field into Walsh, which means Walsh he's winning. He's going to win a very high percentage of them. This isn't like Mayo when they lamp Aidan O'Shea in there and they fire crap ball in at him. You know, up in the sky, or even a lot of the ball that Donaghy used to get over the years for Kerry was crap. You know, Killian Young running down the wing and kicking it up in the air. You know, this is proper backspin on the ball, beautiful flight. When that ball is landed to Tommy Walsh, it's landing soft, so it's very easy for him to hold it first time. It's not hammering off his hands because it's been hit like a bullet. Like, it's beautiful flight on the ball. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah,
I've Stephen Cluxton down here, even though you've turned me off him a little bit, but the 2 saves alone,
the 2 saves alone were
penalty save was massive, and that really knocked the wind out of Kerry's sails, who were really rattling him at the time. And the Murphy save was outstanding as well. Like, I mean, that was the time when Murphy was actually a sweeper, and maybe he was told to get forward a little bit more because he wasn't much of an advantage the way he had been playing, you know. But that was a great strike, and that was going in if he didn't get the fingertips to it.
Yeah, two brilliant saves, and it's just,
he punched a great ball in the first half away too. That was a dangerous ball.
Yeah, he did a dangerous ball around the square. But it's amazing, Cluxton. I mean, like, he almost he had for a goalkeeper, like, he had almost a career highlights reel in the All Ireland final. You know, if a goalkeeper made one of those saves in an All Ireland final, it'd be the highlight of their career, and he's made 2 of them and no fuss about it. You know, so the penalty save was a massive one at the time, really crucial to the momentum.
It was a poor enough penalty though, wasn't it? At least there was conviction in it, but it was a nice height and it wasn't to the corner.
Yeah, look, it wasn't the best penalty in the world. He struck it reasonably well. He didn't, there wasn't a huge amount of pace on it either.
Clifford has to take them. Clifford sticks that into the bottom left or the bottom right.
Well, I'm actually
with his
surprised.
left foot.
I'm surprised with the strike that Sean O'Shea has on the ball. It's quite surprising to me that he.
Yeah,
wouldn't come
I'm
up
fairly
and-
sure Geeney's missed him in the past too. I don't remember him being a
Look,
lethal penalty
Geeney is
taker.
he's the senior man there. He's taken on the responsibility. We've seen them all score penalties before. Look, it just wasn't his best penalty in the world. And in fairness to Cluxon, he guessed the right direction. When he went the right way, he got a strong hand up to it.
He did, and it's actually funny when he guessed the right way. It wasn't in front of him. He had to put his hand back up to get it. So
Yeah.
it actually was a brilliant save in that it wasn't in the corner that it's right in front of your eyes. He put a hand back up
Yeah.
and got a strong hand to it. So it was would we put it down to an outstanding save rather than a bad penalty?
Very good save.
Okay, Tommy Walsh is the other one, lads. Turned the game completely, assisted 1-1. We've talked about that. Tyg Morley deserves a mention here, lads. Got the job of Markin Mannion, who has been... I know everyone's talking about Con, but Con across the season hasn't been as impressive as Mannion. Mannion has been their main man. I didn't see that matchup coming. I thought Morley would take on Con, Thomas Sullivan and Kilkenny, and I thought Foley would have marked Mannion. And I'll stand corrected on that because Foley could get roasted by Mannion. Morley, you just know what you're getting from him. He's just an honest, strong player, and you're getting nothing easy off him. And I think he got into Mannion's head so much that Mannion just started taking pot shots, and now they were going over against Mayo, but he 2 bad wides in the second half. He did well to stay on the field the whole game, actually, the way Jim Gavin would be ruthless enough.
Yeah, look, he snatched at a couple of his chances, but that's a reflection of Morley's performance as well, in that even when Mannion maybe got away from him, Morley was chasing him down hard. He was constantly getting back to put him under pressure, and Mannion would have been feeling that pressure all along. And Mannion just didn't have... he was kind of back to the erratic Paul Mannion that we would have seen over a number of years previous, where he's mishandling ball, he's skying shots that he would be clipping over on this season's form. So he'll be disappointed with his own execution. Now, none of the shots that he tried, the 2 that he skied up in the air, they weren't percentage shots per se, but he'd been getting them this season. So Morley deserves credit for putting him under huge pressure.
Yeah. Mannion was whipped off at the end, wasn't he? I think for
Did he get
Costello,
taken off at the
Yeah,
end?
67 minutes or something. Yeah,
which it was a sign of the game, or Tyg Morley was having at least.
Oh yeah, 67. We did well to get to 67.
Yeah.
That's the...
it's surprising Costello wasn't brought on a bit earlier, to be honest, because particularly with the game the way it was, like Costello's he buzzes around a good bit, and he is very lively when he comes into
very
a game
bad
like
miss.
that.
Very, very bad miss from him. That was an easy chance for a
For
player
him,
like him.
for him, he'll be disappointed he didn't get
Very
that.
disappointed. And some people giving out that Connolly came on for Howard because Howard was playing so well. I'm fairly sure Howard was was tapping at his leg. I thought it was his hamstring. Maybe that was cramping, or maybe he strained it.
He was down on the ground.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't anything to do with his performance. But Connolly had been warming up for a long time, lads, and he'd been tugged out for a long time. And it wasn't until Howard actually showed signs that I'm injured before he came on. I do honestly think Dublin management froze, lads. If Connolly's top is off, what are you waiting for? Get him on. Now, he had a shot to nothing as well. I wouldn't blame Connolly for going for that. He's well able to get those type of scores, and he was in the pocket. But that tailed off wide. Howard tailed off wide. They were dominating the game, but maybe that was nerves as well, even though that they were putting their bodies on the line to get the ball. But they were missing kind of chances.
They're chances that those guys are capable of getting. But, Connolly and Howard, if you stand them there and give them 10 shots, they're not going to get 10 out of 10. Howard would be doing well, I'd say, to get 6 out of 10 from where he shot from. And
they were unlike Dublin. They were pot shots rather
than...
Yeah, but
probably that's a reflection of Kerry, with the extra player that they had, Dublin's legs being tired. They didn't really want, they had an opportunity. It was a sort of a 50, 60, 70% shot. They ordinarily would work it on, but they didn't have that extra support runner. It's late in the game. They've worked so hard to get possession. They have to have a go. They have to have conviction and go for these things rather than passing responsibility and passing the buck. Like, I'd say when that ball went back to Connolly, I'd say most people would have been thinking, oh yeah, he's going to nail this, because that's what you expect from from Connolly, you know, and
Yeah.
he probably didn't miss it by much.
Yeah, no, I don't think he did miss it by much. Right, who wins performance this weekend? Very obvious one, Jack McCaffrey.
I don't know,
1-3
Willie.
from wing
Like, I
back.
mean, we're going against everything we believe in if we give a man of the match to a fellow who fists a pint. You know?
That was one occasion. That was a fisted pint. There was no angle there. Like, I mean, that was, you can't even give out
But
about
if he
that.
kicked a goal, they would have won it.
Do not say anything about Jack McCaffrey here to me on this. Like 1-3 from wing back, and I'm a ex number 7 myself, and I really appreciate a man that can get 1-3 from wing back. So Jack McCaffrey, very obvious choice. Probably Sean O'Shea, the next one in line to get in there. I thought he was brilliant throughout, but he wasn't as good as McCaffrey. So Jack wins that. And we're around for another 2 weeks. Well, I'm going. Look, listen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll be doing a show Thursday. Sure, we'll do a preview show the following week as well. So we're hanging around. It's been a long season, but it's Kerry and Dublin in a replay, so we won't complain. We'll talk to you Thursday. Good luck.